Hey, so real quick, I just started my very first Discord. I know, long time coming, but tomorrow I'm hosting my very first stages where we get to do a live Q&A, we get to chat for a bit, and I'll be giving away a Switch pod. Oh yeah. In fact, I'll be hosting 5 stages throughout the summer with a lot of fun, some giveaways, so make sure to join my Discord, link below. All right, here we go. Let's talk about the FX3. So, I am sure you have seen many videos about this, about people selling their a7S III to get the Sony FX3, and some people have been asking, Sid, are you gonna do the same thing? I don't know. I mean, it's very tempting. The FX3 looks like an amazing cinema camera, but there's just one thing about that camera that prevents me from even considering getting it. And that reason is global shutter. Like, if it's gonna be a cinema camera, it should have global shutter. Basically, that just renders out a lot more of a cinematic motion blur. Like, a lot of the DSLR mirrorless cameras kind of emulate that with the shutter speed. Like, you double the frame rate and the shutter speed, and for the most part it looks good, but when you compare it to an actual cinema camera, like, the difference is night and day. But then again, if I get an FX3 and I also get a camera that's specifically for photography, like the supposed a7 IV, like, those two cameras would fit much better in a camera bag, especially with the flat profile of the FX3. And so together, you and I, we're gonna check out some videos about the FX3 from your favorite YouTubers, and we'll see if they convince me to sell my a7S III to get the FX3. Well, all right, let's change the angle actually. There we go. Very good. Hi. All right, so I typed in Sony FX3 on YouTube, and let's just pick one of these creators. Let's go with Dunna. Dunna did it. Let's see what he has to say.
People are confused, they're upset, they don't know what to think, they don't know what to do. The FX3 is almost the same camera as the a7S III, right? Well, yes and no.
By the way, Dunna, your intro looks
What is
hot.
up, people? Dunna here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Sony FX3, some of the things that are different between that and the a7S III. I was one of the fortunate ones who got an a7S III early on, and I've been using it for a while now, but I recently got my hands on an FX3 and have been absolutely loving it, and I'm actually going to be buying one really soon here. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why. Now, a quick primer for these two cameras: they are both video-centric cameras. However, only the FX3 actually got called part of the Sony Cinema line. Now, whether it deserves that cinema title or not is heavily under debate all over the internet, so leave a comment down below and let me know if you think it should be called a cinema camera.
It is not.
All right,
it doesn't have global shutter.
Starting off with some of the features that for me are kind of neutral, but might make a bigger difference for you. On the FX3, we've got more video-centric labels on the camera, as well as some of the settings are more video-centric as well. So for example, some of the buttons on the FX3 are labeled with things like zebras or iris, things that are more video-centric. This just makes it a little bit easier if you're a video shooter to know where things are, unless of course you've customized everything to something else.
That's good. That wouldn't persuade me to get an FX3 though.
Another new feature on the FX3 is the new fan system. And while this is really cool, pun intended, it hasn't really made much of a difference for me. I'm sure there are some—
That's true. My a7S III has never overheated at all, and so I don't know if it'd be that much of a benefit to have a fan system in the FX3.
I love the form factor of the FX3. It's a little bit thicker than the a7S III is, but they've chopped off the EVF so it's shorter. I almost never use an EVF on any of my cameras, so I was really happy to see them just chop it off and save me the space.
That'd be funny if they actually did chop it off for, like, you know, the initial design. So Dunna's totally right. I love the form factor. It just looks more compact. It fits better in a camera bag. And if you're one of those filmmakers that attaches a cage on their a7S III or whatever camera they have, like, it ends up being bulky, right? But with the FX3, like, it is a cage in itself, and the form factor is just fantastic. And so yeah, that's a legitimate reason for me to get the FX3.
Also means that if you're gonna fly this camera on a gimbal, you've got more clearance on the top, and it makes room for the new top handle, which we'll talk about in a second. So with the FX3, you actually get a unit that is a top handle, as well as a dual XLR input audio interface. And it uses Sony's multi-interface shoe technology to be able to do it without having any cables.
See, that's cool, but I'd much rather just have the handle and not have the audio interface. You know what I mean? Like, I get it, it's part of the cinema line, and for that reason, that totally makes sense, but for a camera of that size, I'd probably just use a Rode VideoMic Pro Plus and just attach it on top of the FX3. And so, yeah, I don't know. Is there an option where you can just get the handle, or do you have to get like a third-party one? I don't know. All right, let's check out Jevin Dovey's video.
So I thought that this FX3 would be a good replacement for the A7S Mark III, but unfortunately, it doesn't really fit as a cinema camera in the cinema line. There's just some weird quirks with it, and basically Sony just took an A7S Mark III and put it into a new form factor, which may or may not be appealing to you, and it really comes down to the type of content that you're creating.
Fantastic point. Like, if you want to make content on YouTube, on Instagram, or whatever, you don't really need to have an FX3. Like, that's a bit overkill. Even the A7S III might be overkill for some people. So that's a great point by Jevin.
Now, looking at the camera, there is a record button right here on the front. Now, I found when I was shooting this documentary, I kept hitting this when I was adjusting the lens, and I kept stopping my record. I can easily take off the functionality of that, but it is kind of annoying because it's in a spot where your hand's gonna rest when you're shooting in this kind of style. I would have liked to have seen some buttons on the other side where the grip is, where your fingers are. And when you're working with the FX6, there's buttons on the hand grip behind so that your fingers can press them. And this hand grip—
that totally makes sense. Like, every cinema camera that I've used, most of the buttons are near where the grip is. And so, yeah, that's a reason for me not to get the FX3.
Even on the Sony a7SIII, there's a little eyepiece. And yeah, it's not the most functional, but it's still there so that you could put your eye and actually see your exposure and colors and everything, where you don't have to have an external monitor or you're sitting there like this trying to see the exposure of the screen. Now,
okay, so that's probably the other biggest reason for me not to get the FX3. I love the EVF viewfinder of the A7S III. I love it on all cameras because whenever I'm out filming, out in the bright sun, whatever, like, it makes it easier for me to see everything properly through the viewfinder. Like, the LCD screens, like the screens on all Sony cameras suck. Like, they're just not good. So the lack of a viewfinder on the FX3 makes me real hesitant to actually want to buy it. And the whole point of the A7S III is that it's a hybrid camera. You can use it for photos, you can use it for video, and so for me, it's important to have a viewfinder because I'm a hybrid shooter. All right, good points, Jevin. Let's go ahead and watch one more video because there's a point that I want to make. We're gonna check out my boy Cody Blue because he still shoots with the Sony a7 III, and all his stuff just looks beautiful. Like, he's a true artist. Plus, he's my homie, and so we're gonna check out this video and see what footage shot on the a7 III looks like.
Here it comes again, another try.
Already, it just looks really good. Like, Cody is really good with color grading, and so anything he shoots just looks so good.
Oh, there it goes again, another certitude dies. A trust defense to let me know just how far my hope had.
Oh, love that shot, and I love this shot. Okay, so this actually proves my point, because if an ordinary person were to look at footage shot by Cody and footage shot by Dunna, like, it's kind of hard to compare and see an actual difference, right? This is what I mean when I say gear doesn't matter, because it really depends on the person behind the camera. I mean, gear matters to an extent if you're working with clients and all that stuff, I get that, but if the end result looks good, then what does it matter? All right, let's wrap this up. What do I think? Am I going to sell my a7S III to get the FX3? No. I am not, at least not for now. I love my a7S III, like, it's just been the best camera that I've ever used. And even though it shoots 12 megapixel photos, that doesn't really matter when it comes to posting it online. But for me, the two main reasons that I would not get the FX3 is the lack of global shutter and the lack of a viewfinder. I need to have the viewfinder because, like I've said before, if I'm shooting outside, it's just so helpful to have that viewfinder so that you can see everything properly. And with the lack of a global shutter, like, it almost defeats the purpose of getting the FX3 as a cinema camera because it isn't really a cinema camera. Like, yeah, it has all the buttons and everything else, but like Jevin and Dunna said, the a7S III and the FX3 are essentially the same camera in a different form factor. And so for those two reasons alone, I am not going to get the FX3. Maybe one day, if the a7 IV comes out and it's a pretty kick-butt camera, and then in my backpack I'll have a camera dedicated for photos and a camera dedicated for video. We'll see, we haven't crossed that bridge yet, but as of right now, I am not gonna get the FX3. And if you think I'm wrong, totally cool too, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I wanted to make a video addressing this little issue, and my official statement is, no, I will not be getting the FX3. yet. I don't know. All right, well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Don't forget, tomorrow I'm hosting a live Stages on Discord. Well, we'll be talking, hanging out, and also giving away a Switch pod. That'll be nice. Join my server. Links below. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a Merry... What? Obviously, my mind is somewhere else. But have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.